Hello, Booktube. This is Aaron from Aaron Read a Book or Aaron Read a Book, doing Friday reads. This is like the third time I've recorded this. The first time it just didn't work at all. My microphone didn't work at all. The second time, my microphone cuts out after the intro. So I'm going to cut to that in a minute. So the audio is going to go to a different volume, probably. I don't think it's too bad though. After my intro. I haven't done Friday Reads in a couple of weeks, and it's because I did a video on literary detectives, and I got loads of suggestions from commentators on what on loads of series I hadn't heard of before. So I've done a little book haul, and I was waiting for those to arrive from in the post before I did the haul, or before I did my Friday Reads. So I'm going to cut to my Friday Reads in a minute, or my book haul in a minute, and I've only got 3 books to show because one of them's still in the post, so I'll show that next time. But now I'm going to cut to the slightly worse audio, so sorry about that. The first one I got was Ellie Griffiths, and it's The Crossing Places, and this is the first of the hugely popular Dr. Ruth Galloway mysteries. And this series is about a forensic archaeologist, so it plays into my love of history and archaeology as well. So that was a no-brainer to get that one. Yeah, so she's an archaeologist rather than a police person, and there's a police person in it as well. So we'll see how that one goes. And the second one was Jacqueline Winspear's Maisie Dobbs. I think this is the first in the Maisie Dobbs series, but it's just called Maisie Dobbs. And it has this nice little kind of Londony stylized artwork on the front. You see this quite a lot because it's the same style as the Ashley Weaver ones as well. This one is about a private detective, a young girl private detective. It's sort of set in 1929, so the interwar period. So again, a period I love reading books about. So sounded very interesting to me. And finally, the third one I bought has arrived is Agatha, Raisin and the Quiche of Death. And this is MC Beaton, and I'm going to talk more about this one because I've already read it. But yeah, I love the cover of this one. I'm looking very blue in this video, like not sad, but the color blue, and I think it's because I need to change because it was like reflecting off the book, but I film very close to my PC, and so I can look at my notes. So I need to bring up a tab. But yeah, now I'm very bright looking. I'm going to go through what I've read in the last couple of weeks. I've actually finished 5 books since I last did a Friday Reads, but I'm only going to talk in depth about the 3 that I started and finished because the other 2 were second books in the series, so I don't want to give too much spoilers away for second books in the series, and I'd already spoken about them a little bit anyway. The first book I want to talk about, this is when I have to scroll through my notes, is The Blue Book of Nebo by Manon Steffan Ross. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but she's a Welsh author, so this is for Dewithon, and this was recommended by Heather from Too Many Heathers, and it was like the first one she recommended, and I was like, oh, I'll read that one then, and it was in my local library, so it sounded good. So this is a post-apocalyptic film book, and it's very short. It's only about 150 pages, and I had sort of some misconceptions about it in a way, because it says it's YA on Goodreads, so I thought it was going to be quite YA, and it isn't at all. And for some reason, because I don't like spoilers, I never read too much about a book. But I glanced over some Goodreads reviews, and for some reason, I got the impression that this was like a cozy post-apocalyptic film. I keep saying film. Book. But it is. I didn't. It's kind of cozy in that it's rural Wales, and it's not like Mad Max. They're not like chasing people over a desert. But emotionally, this was not cozy. It was like heartbreaking at times, and very. Well, I'll talk about the plot. So, and by the way, when I thought this was cozy, and then I read it and finished it, and I finished this in like one sitting. I went and rewatched Heather's review, and Heather's just like bawling her eyes out the whole time. So I was like, oh, now I remember. But yeah, so it's about a mother and son in rural Wales, a number of years after the end, which was a nuclear sort of disaster, or well, nuclear war that has basically ended most life on the planet. They already lived in this rural Welsh village anyway, so they have just stayed where they were. And in sort of Welsh tradition, they are trying to write down their things in the Blue Book of Nebo. Their village is called Nebo, and there's other things in Welsh history called the Book of, like the Book of Carmarthen or whatever. And so they're kind of carrying on a Welsh tradition by writing down their thoughts and making their own book. Because the small boy, or he's actually a teenager, he loves reading, and he's read like everything he can get his hands on. So you get alternate chapters between the boy and his mother, and there's also his little sister as well, who is too young to have been alive before the end. So he knows that she's been impregnated somehow, but he doesn't know by who, because it's just them. It's just them on this farm. They have no neighbours. So that's a bit of a mystery element, although it's not really. And it reminded me a bit of my favourite ever post-apocalyptic book, which is Earth Abides, in that it goes into quite a lot of the rebuilding of life after apocalypse. So they're learning how to be farmers, they're learning how to build things themselves, and like it's very sort of pastoral, and I really like that, rather than sort of the Mad Max style. So that was really nice. I won't go too much into the plot, but it's really lovely writing. And this was originally written in Welsh, and then the author herself rewrote it in English a few years later. But yeah, I really loved this book, and it was 5 stars for me. There are some weaknesses, but the overall impression the book left on me was brilliant, and it's up there with, I would put it in my favourite post-apocalyptic books now. So I really loved that. But yeah, if you don't like YA, you wouldn't even know this was YA unless it was tagged. The only reason I would have known is because it says it's YA on Goodreads. It's definitely very adult themes, and I guess because half of the book's written from the perspective of a boy or a young person, that it would always get tagged as that. A bit like Z for Zachariah, which is a book I read a lot when I was a teenager. That was meant to be, that's YA, but it's got brutal scenes in it. But yeah, that was a great start to the Dewithon for me. I don't know if I'll get time to read any more Welsh Welsh literature. But yeah, I love that. The second thing I started and finished was Elizabeth George's A Great Deliverance, which is the first in the Inspector Linley books. And this is not my typical kind of mystery that I read because it's quite dark, as you can tell from the cover, which is brooding. This follows Linley, who is an earl. Is he an earl? Yeah, the 8th Earl of Asherton. And it also follows his partner, who's Detective Sergeant Barbara Havers. And it's a lot about their partnership and the characters and their backstory and stuff. So it it's quite unusual in that it really focuses hard on characterization and not so much on the mystery. And the characters are very flawed and have quite a lot of dark stuff in their past, both of them. And Havers is kind of on her last chance because she's had partnerships before and none of them have worked out because she's quite bitter and angry, and no one's really given her a proper chance. And she doesn't. At first, she hates Linley. Like Linley's the last person she wants to be paired with because she thinks he's like a fop, like a rich, sort of born with a silver spoon in his mouth, womanizer. And parts of that are true, but he's sort of rejected being landed gentry. He's working for a living. He's not like some other literary detectives in that he is actually a professional. He's not an amateur. The mystery itself is they get sent up to Yorkshire, and this girl has been found sitting in a barn covered in her father's blood with her father's decapitated body next to her, and also their dead dog as well. And she says, "I did it. I'm not sorry." And then she doesn't say anything again after that. And they put her in a mental hospital. So it looks like an unopened and shut case, but obviously there's more to it than that. And they go up to Yorkshire and get to know everyone in the village and stuff. And then there's a side story, which is two of Linley's friends have just got married, and they are also just happen to be honeymooning in the same village. And then there's a lot of backstory in their relationship as well. So, and his friend is like the forensic specialist, so they work together as well. So, a lot of this novel is introducing the characters, and like you get like halfway through before they really start investigating. So it's interesting. I think that the pacing was a little off for me, and it's perhaps a bit darker than my usual taste. So I did really enjoy it though. Elizabeth George is a better writer than most mystery writers. Like she's quite poetic, so I like that about it, and I do like that it focused so much on the characters. But it was dark, and every character has serious issues in this book. So yeah, it's not my usual light and fluffy Miss Marple type thing, but I will probably plug on with the next one and see how it goes. And these have been going for ages. I've got like the 17th one or something. It's a big chunkster somewhere, but I probably will not skip straight to the 17th one. But yeah, it was good, but not my usual cup of tea. The third book I started and finished was, as mentioned, Agatha Raisin and the Quiche of Death. My expectations for this were probably quite low because it's got a funny name, so I just thought it was going to be quite fluffy nonsense, and B, MC Beaton. I looked her up before I started reading it, and she's written like 300 books. She was a old tabloid sort of journalist until quite late in her life, and then she started writing books when she was older, and churned out like 100 Regency romances under a different name, and then decided to get in the detective game. And she also has another series called Hamish Macbeth, which was a famous TV show when I was a kid, with Robbie Carlyle. And I always used to get it mixed up with Rab C. Nesbitt, the two Scottish TV shows of my childhood. But Hamish Macbeth was the detective one, not the sort of net vest wearing slob of Rab C. Nesbitt. But yeah, so she's written like 35 of these ones, Agatha Raisin ones, and a bucket load of Hamish Macbeth as well. So I kind of thought it would be kind of trashy, but I actually really loved it. It's really funny for a start. Agatha Raisin is kind of, I feel, probably loosely based on herself in that she's uh, an old PR person, and she's retired early. So she's used to run her own PR business, and she's a very spiky character who uh, is used to being savage to journalists to get her way and stuff. So, um, but she's retired early and sold her business and moved to the Cotswolds. So there's a certain amount of having to peel away at her hard exterior before she can fit in this sort of. If you've never seen the Cotswolds, it's like a lovely, lovely. It's like the ideal picture of England, like little villages, very local kind of atmosphere. Um, so to try and fit in, she enters a baking competition, and because she can't bake and she's a bit of a swine at the beginning, she decides to go drive down to London and buy a quiche and enter that quiche. And as you can tell from the title in this picture, uh, it is poisoned and someone dies. Uh, the death is ruled accidental in that there is a plant in the quiche that is the cause of death, and they just think it's an accident. But Agatha Raisin doesn't think it is and starts to investigate herself. And the police keep telling her not to. So one of the main characters is who's her first sort of friend in the village is the police sergeant in the village. So again, like most mysteries, you start to meet all the characters in the village and learn more about them. But unlike A Great Deliverance, this is very light and funny, uh, and not hugely dark. It's a sort of silly novel, but very, very enjoyable. And the writing was fine as well. It was nothing amazing, but did its job. I've already bought the next two in the series of this, so I'm very happy to plug on. This is much more my cup of tea, and there's a cup of tea on it. So, and I might have to read the second one straight away because it's got a cat on it, which I know is one of the prompts. So, although I bought it off eBay, so maybe it won't be that edition. Yeah, so those were the three I started and finished this this last couple of weeks. I also finished Becky Chambers' second book in the Monk and Robot, and the second Brother Cadfael book as well, by Ellis Peters, but I won't talk about those because they're the second books, and I've already talked about the plot a bit in previous videos. I'm currently still reading Shogun as well, which is my mammoth, and I'm halfway through that. It's the relentless pace of it slowed down a bit in the middle, which is expectable from a 1,550 page book. But yeah, I'm still really enjoying it, and it's got action, romance, politics, everything, history. It what I found weird is I thought it would jump forward in time, but it hasn't. It's just all been one sort of continuous um, timeline. So it's been good. I will do a bigger review. I might try and do a single video review for that because I've never done one, and I feel like maybe 1,150 pages weren't set. And the other thing I've started reading is, or listening to, sorry, is the audiobook for All Creatures Great and Small. That's not the right word. Yeah, All Creatures Great and Small, um, by James Herriot, and that is a book. It's kind of a fictionalized memoir of James Herriot's real life. He was a vet in the, I keep going to say Yorkshire Dales, but I don't think I'm not sure if it's in the Dales. But he's a vet in Yorkshire for like 50 years, and this is about his first couple of years on the job when he's like 23 years old, and he's got each chapter's like a little funny story almost, or sometimes they're quite poignant as well. Um, and this was a famous TV show as well. I think in the 80s maybe. Um, and the person who reads the audiobook is the person who played the character on TV, and he's brilliant reader, and does really funny voices and stuff. So this has so far been my most enjoyable audiobook experience, which is good because it's like, I think it's like 17 hours long, so, or 16 hours long or something. So uh, I'm about halfway through, and I'm really enjoying that. And it's been a very sort of northern. This is Yorkshire, so is a Great Deliverance, and Agatha Raisin's the Cotswolds. So it's been a very sort of English village life reading for me, which I always like. So that's good. Um, I'm probably going to pick up one of those mysteries as well this weekend, but I do need to start plugging in with Shogun as well because that's the big mammoth one. But yeah, let me know if you've read any of these books, BookTube. Um, I know a lot of you have read the ones I've bought because you were the ones who, like, it was all my commenters that suggested them. So uh, yeah, so you probably have read those. But let me know if you've read Elizabeth George or All Creatures Great and Small or Agatha Raisin or Shogun. And have a good one, BookTube.